contains a lot of familiar groups: animals, plants, fungi, as well as the more enigmatic protists. Collectively, protists can be defined as eukaryotes that just don't belong to the other three groups. Most are microscopic and single-celled, so you might imagine that they're all more or less the same. But they actually have more species diversity than any other eukaryote. Some, like Rhodophyta, group together to make bigger structures that seem very much like plants. Others, like the metamonads, act more like bacteria. They live inside the guts of wood-eating insects, helping them break down tough fibers. And then there's Rhizaria, which construct hard shells around their single cells to protect them from ocean waves, similar to clams and snails. But they're not plants, bacteria, or animals. They're the beautiful rainbow of protists. And that's just to name a few examples. Protists are not as prevalent as bacteria and archaea, but still, if you balled up all the protists on Earth, they'd weigh roughly twice all the animals. Protists come in just under 1% of the Earth's total biomass. And they're an important component of virtually every ecosystem, including our own internal ecosystems. We wouldn't stand a chance of digesting our food without the diverse community of protists, plus bacteria and other microbes that call it home. And speaking of things that outnumber us while benefiting us in multiple ways, the next major branch on the tree of life is plants. As a group, plants are defined as multicellular organisms that can make their own food by photosynthesis. Their cells have rigid walls made from a substance called cellulose, and they don't make a habit of moving around by themselves. But working with that basic definition, plants have nevertheless managed to evolve some impressive diversity. There are vascular plants like trees that transport water and sugars through their stems, leaves, and roots using dedicated plumbing networks. And there are non-vascular plants like liverworts that don't have specialized transport cells. There are plants like ferns that reproduce with spores, and seed plants who do it, as the name suggests, with seeds. And so much more. Plants are by far the most dominant living thing on Earth, accounting for over 80% of the Earth's biomass. And while plants live their days in the warmth of the sun, typically at least, the next major branch of the tree, fungi, are much more secretive, often lurking underground or out of sight. Members of the fungi group are united by being heterotrophs, meaning that they eat other organisms to get their food rather than making their own, like plants, which are usually autotrophs. Fungi are mostly multicellular, although some can be single-celled, and their cell walls are strengthened with chitin, a biopolymer found in nature that bolsters things like exoskeletons. For most of us, our relationship with fungi extends to the mushrooms on our pizza, or maybe the toadstools popping up deliciously or poisonously in the forest. But this is only a tiny part of their story. Fungi also include yeasts, like our friend Yeasty the 212th over here, and molds like the green and pink fur that grows on old bread. In the wild, fungi play an important role in the food chain, helping to break down all kinds of organic matter and release nutrients back into the soil for plants to use. They also play a similar cooperative role inside many plants and animals, keeping everything cycling smoothly. Fungi represent about 2% of our planet's biomass, way less than plants, but still way more than animals. And with that, we have finally reached the last major branch on the tree of life: animals. Animals are heterotrophic like fungi, although they typically digest their food inside their bodies instead of outside. They're all multicellular, but unlike fungi, those cells have membranes that allow for things to move in and out rather than cell walls. Most animals arrange their cells into groups of similar cells called tissues, but there are some, like sea sponges, that don't. You can literally squeeze the cells of a sea sponge through a sieve, and it will regroup and carry on as if nothing happened. Most of us aren't like that. Major animal groups can be divided based on what kind of symmetry their bodies have. Some, like jellyfish and sea anemones, have radial symmetry, from the center outward, whereas many others, like you and me, have bilateral symmetry. That is, we're pretty much mirrored down the middle. And then, the animal branch splits further based on how the animal develops before it's born. In some groups, the mouth is among the first to develop. So among these mouth firsters, you have all insects, plus mollusks like snails, mussels, and octopuses, and worms. So many worms. Like more worms than you can shake a, well, worm at. If the mouth isn't the first to develop in animals, then the alternative is the anus. Animals whose anus appears first include sea urchins, starfish, plus all vertebrate animals, from fish to people. That's right, we are butt-firsters. Anyway, since we're animals ourselves, it's natural that we typically give this group the most attention. And there is a vast diversity of animal life around us. But as we've seen, we are well matched and even dwarfed by several other branches of the tree of life. That's not even counting the many branches of living things that have been cut off due to extinction. Individual species and entire groups, like the dinosaurs and the ammonites, are long gone. And we have to rely on their fossils to help place them on the tree. For some, like the mysterious Ediacaran organisms that lived 600 million years ago, we struggle to place them among the known groups because they have features that just don't fit the existing branches, earning them a place in the phylum Problematica, which is a real thing, by the way. And still others don't leave a fossil record at all. What's more, the most recent research into evolutionary relationships is revealing that the tree of life might be less